Welcome back to another episode of Down to the Wire with my NHL analyst, Nolan Thode. Nolan, how are you doing today?
I'm not bad, just new week. It's March 1st. We're slowly getting closer and closer to the summer. Weather was not too bad last week, but, things are just good in the Thode household.
And, going with that, we got baseball on the horizon, which means that we are getting close to NHL playoffs. The trade deadline is, in fact, only 6 weeks away. And, I think I really think this trade deadline is going to be quite lackluster due to the quarantine. The Canadian division teams aren't going to be trading much. With the American, you can trade with each other because you don't have to quarantine. But I don't think we're going to see cross-border trades or, Canadian division is going to be quiet.
Yeah, the trade deadline every year, it's like, typically hockey fans, one of their favorite days of the year just because, so much movement in the league, lots and lots of trades. Everyone's, getting in their last trades of the season. And, this season it's going to be a lot more quiet than we're used to.
Getting into the news side of things, on Monday we learned that actually a potential Dave Ayers movie is in the works. Obviously that was in relation to Dave Ayers' 1-year anniversary of beating the Toronto Maple Leafs. It was reported by Luke Fox of Sportsnet saying that James Corden actually has a production company lined up for Mr. Ayers. It also went on to say that Corden hooked up Ayers with CAA, which is Creative Artists and Agency. And the full quote says, "You wouldn't believe the amount of production companies that have come to us already asking to do this film. It's insane." And just from that, if Ayers does get a movie, he's getting one, I guess, firstly, than Crosby and Gretzky and some of the other great players that have played hockey.
Yeah, obviously in the ranks all time, you're not going to put David Ayers up to Gretzky and Crosby, but just like the whole situation around it, what actually occurred, to the casual sports fan, it's really insane what happened, how, someone who was a Zamboni driver, like obviously he had goalie experience in the past, but this isn't a professional hockey league player, and he came in and actually won the game. So, it's an incredible story, and, I'm excited to see what kind of things will shape up from this.
Toronto deployed a Marner, Matthews, and Tavares line against Calgary on Monday. And I thought that was to potentially spark Tavares because there is a lot of heat going, he's taking a lot of heat because his production numbers aren't there to what the Leafs are paying him and to what, fans are kind of used to seeing Tavares put up. We saw him put up, around consistently like 50, 60 points with the Islanders, but he's never reached that level with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, I think that line that was deployed against Calgary on Monday was kind of to hopefully raise Tavares's offensive stats there.
Yeah, this specific line, the Marner, Matthews, Tavares, they used this last year in the qualifying round against Columbus, and it didn't go too well for them. Obviously, late game in game 4, they were able to come back from 3-0, but they kind of just had, all their best guys on the ice. And then they got shut out in game 5 against Columbus. So I was interested to see them go back to this lineup. The whole Leafs lineup was just kind of weird that game. Frederik Andersen wasn't in. I believe Hyman wasn't in as well, nor was Muzzin. Just a ton of injuries, and this is what they're coming up with, I guess.
And going off that point, actually, Marner, Matthews, and Tavares are a combined $42.9 million on just that one line, which is actually one of the, in my opinion, one of the more priciest lines in NHL history. We could probably argue that, the Canucks' fourth line, maybe like a Jay Beagle, Louis Eriksson, but not even that would equal $42.9 million. You're putting a lot of money into your top guys, and, to see them not perform up to expectations is kind of disappointing.
Yeah, no, I think you're right on that, Mark, saying that's definitely the highest paid line in NHL history. I'm thinking any other time that 3 guys making over, upwards of 11 million dollars all on the same line. No, it's a lot of money going into one line. And I think, being an Oilers fan, I talk about, Draisaitl and McDavid a lot, but it's huge. I think depth is important, and seeing that the, Oilers have been able to shift into, putting those 2 guys on separate lines, it's worked well. And I think, the whole league should just kind of, stick to that sort of mentality.
Jake Mccabe is out for the rest of the season for the Buffalo Sabres. He had damage to his ACL, MCL, and meniscus. He's out for a total of 6 to 8 months. I'm hoping for a speedy recovery for him. He, seemed to have a good, was going to have a good season for, at least a bright spot for Buffalo. But certainly that's a hole for them to fill. And, the Sabres just haven't really, like they got Taylor Hall in the offseason, but he's done absolutely nothing for them. And it's kind of a letdown for Sabres fans once again.
Yeah, with Mccabe, I'm not sure if you saw the actual injury, but I was watching the game live and, it didn't necessarily look like something that would be 6 to 8 months, but it just kind of proves that knee injuries are no joke, especially, in hockey. You can't really skate if your knee is injured, and it's tough for them. He was kind of, a solid piece of that blue line, more of a steady guy that you could kind of trust on your back end, and, losing him is a big blow to the Sabres. And, they've had tons of big blows, within the last month, ever since kind of they went down for 2 weeks with COVID. I think everything has just gone, the opposite way that they've wanted for them to go in Buffalo.
Another player having troubles with the Buffalo Sabres is Jeff Skinner. He was made a healthy scratch throughout the whole week. Actually, he was set to return on Saturday, but on that fourth line, so he's still playing fourth line jail time. And I think personally that if you're trying to get Skinner, who's you're paying $9 million, by the way, to reach that 40-goal season again, you can't have him play fourth line minutes, because not only does that limit his capabilities, just all around in general, but that also limits him because you're not going to score every shift that you're out there. And when you're getting fourth line time, right, if you think about that, that's literally under 10 minutes a game. So how are you going to, play him on the fourth line consistently and basically rely on him to score a goal every game? I feel like that's a very unrealistic approach to take to this situation. So I think if Skinner were to play on, maybe the first line, playing with, Buffalo's best players, then you could see his production levels increase.
Yeah, the whole Skinner situation, I mentioned how, I come from a Sabres household. My dad's a Sabres fan. My brother's a Sabres fan. He had the 40 goal season, got his big contract in the off season. And then, he struggled with injuries a bit early last season, I remember. And, Victor Olofsson, kind of emerged and sort of took his spot on that top line with Eichel and, Reinhart most of the time. And it kind of just resulted in Skinner, being second line. And, he lost a lot of confidence, and that turned into him being third line and then fourth line. And he just, under Ralph Kruger has been unable to, gain that confidence. He just doesn't look like the same player. I remember 2 weeks ago, they tried, Skinner on the top line again with Eichel. And, he just looks like a completely different player than he did 2 seasons ago.
Well, here's an interesting stat for you. And this is per Joe DiBiase, who does the, a nightcap show on WGR 550, which is the Buffalo Sabres radio network. So Jeff Skinner's 5 most common line mates of 5v5. So this is under Ralph Kruger, is Marcus Johansson, Connor Sheary, Curtis Lazar, Evan Rodriguez, and Vladimir Sobotka. All right. So you're thinking his line mates are absolute garbage. They're trash. Well, here's this. Here are Skinner's 5 most common line mates under Phil Housley: Jack Eichel, Sam Reinhart, Jason Pominville, Evan Rodriguez, and Kyle Okposo. And to really put the nail in the coffin, 40 goals for Housley, 14 for Kruger. And, that basically tells us everything. Clearly, Kruger is underutilizing one of their top players and, burying him on the fourth line. And, Skinner even said this week, how am I supposed to learn if you're scratching me for 3 straight games?
Yeah. When Housley was fired, I thought, that was the right move. They kind of weren't, going anywhere with Housley. But, 2 years later, maybe they should have kept Phil Housley, because he had, guys like Skinner performing to that 40-goal level. And Ralph Kruger, I believe, is, in the NHL, I feel like there's certain types of coaches, and I feel like Kruger is one of more of those like system type coaches where, like a Tortorella. Tortorella doesn't need a lot of talent to succeed, but I feel like just this team, does not fit Ralph Kruger's coaching style whatsoever. Guys like Eichel, Reinhart, these are guys that, rely on their offensive game to make an impact, whereas Kruger kind of, shies away from that a bit, and hiding guys like Skinner on the fourth line, isn't going to help anyone.
Not only that, but we should probably get into the whole Eichel and Kruger fiasco there, where Eichel came out and said, his injury wasn't in warmups against New Jersey. I'm pretty sure. There was contradicting reports there when Eichel was interviewed yesterday after their loss, after their shutout against Philadelphia, and Ralph Kruger said, I think it was Thursday or Friday or something. He's like, yeah, Eichel, he's day to day because he suffered an injury in warmups. Next thing you know, Eichel contradicts him, and another problem is escalating for the Sabres. It's going from bad to worse really quickly.
Yeah, and Linus Allmark as well, going down with an injury. It just seems like things aren't going to get a whole lot better for the Sabres under current management. And, the GM, he's in his first year. I think he's done some decent moves, bringing in depth like Tobias Rieder, Cody Eakin, pieces like that. So I don't think the GM's on the hot seat necessarily, but, I wouldn't be surprised if Kruger gets fired within the next week.
Moving on to better news here, the LA Kings are really turning back the clock, I should say. They have the NHL longest winning streak. It actually got snapped. I think it was 4 games when I wrote this down, but it might have got extended to 4 or 5. But
I think they made it to 6 games.
6 games. Okay, so even better. Certainly, I didn't have them winning 6 games in a row, or they're even at the top of their division. I certainly didn't expect that this season.
Yeah, with this new division, with these new division, there's so many dynamics that, come that we wouldn't normally have in a regular season. And the Kings have kind of been able to take advantage of this division. I'm not sure if, the competition's weaker or just the guys on their team are playing better. We're kind of turning back the clock and seeing more of a prime Drew Doughty again, Dustin Brown as well. And Anze Kopitar is always, a solid guy. But the goaltending as well, I think, is a really, really big indicator. Cal Peterson and Jonathan Quick have formed like a really solid tandem so far, and it's been able for the Kings to stay afloat even though they're in somewhat of a rebuilding phase during their team's history.
You mentioned Dustin Brown, and he actually scored during his 1200th career game. There are going to be a lot of milestones that we're going to mention during this episode, and watching these players, I guess, grow. Us growing up, watching them, it's crazy to think that they're hitting these, wild milestones.
Yeah, like when we were younger, we had like the occasional player, from the last era, retire, and it didn't really have much of an impact on us. But now we're starting to see, the Ovechkins, Dustin Brown, Crosby, these players that we grew up watching. They were just rookies when we were young, and now they're starting to, be in the twilight years of their career, and it really is showing our age and how the NHL is evolving.
Matthew Kichuk scored his 100th career goal Monday night against Toronto with a deflection in front of the net. Just a classic Kichuk cheese goal right there. That's his Twitter handle. I thought that was kind of funny. But anyway, if you think about Matthew Kichuk, you always think about how he's always in front of the net, making teams, body him, box him out. But just a nice grit and grind goal with the deflection in front.
Yeah, and it was good for him. He was kind of on a bit of a schneid, leading into that game. So it's nice to see him, especially with a goal, get on the score sheet. He's a very interesting case because when you typically think of a net front presence in the NHL, you think of kind of more of a plug guy who just gets in front and screens the goalie. And, Matthew Kichuk is an interesting case because, he has the body to get in front, screen the goalie, provide that, bit of protection for his players, but he also has a bunch of skill and he's quick with the puck and he can do a lot in front of the net. Dangerous player for sure.
We talked about Dallas's lack of shots, basically, or lack of goals for, a couple of weeks ago. And it was very prevalent on Monday when they got outshot 29-4 in the second period against Florida. Their issues are still having, that problem of getting the puck towards the net. And it's 2021. Like how much are you going to rely on that defensive system?
Yeah, it seems like they're relying, heavily on their back end. I think, the Stars last year, the reason they were able to make a run is just because how strong their back end was. Anton Khudobin was playing out of his mind. But then you also had guys step up like Pavelski scoring a ton of goals in the playoffs. But now, in this regular season, when you're not playing the same team in a series, when you're kind of jumping from team to team, these slower parts of your team, the weaker parts of your team begin to show. And I think, Dallas top to bottom, needs a lot more speed on their lineup. just because they're not able to generate a lot of offense when, they can't get the puck deep in the other team's end.
One of the NHL top prospects of 2020, I believe, Trevor Zegras made his NHL debut Monday against the Arizona Coyotes. He actually went no bucket during warmies. I thought that was a real power move because usually rookies for their rookie lap, they wear a bucket. They don't go all flow basically during their first game. So I thought, he showed a lot of confidence there going no bucket. But coming into his first game, he had 9 points in eight AHL games. And, basically telling the Ducks, like, all right, I'm done with the minor hockey, call me up to the NHL.
Yeah, it seemed like, he went from wherever he played last year, whether it was at the development program or college, right into the AHL, and he was able to be above a point per game. It seemed like he was ready. And then, he kind of takes this step up, and, it might not be as smooth of a transition as we would maybe think, with a player of his talent.
Oh no, we should probably mention as well that Dallas Eakins. I don't think he's really the best coach for him per se, because it's come out that not only on the projected roster for the lineups, Zegras is playing top 6 minutes, which you think get like 15, 16 minutes a night, but it came out there's actually a stat, and Zegras is averaging 12 minutes for time on ice. And, I don't think that's good enough to get a rookie to get used to how NHL players play, whether it's, taking a body correctly, just systematically getting used to it. I think that if you're going to play him on the second line, he should earn second line minutes. And certainly it looks as though he's earning third or fourth line minutes.
Yeah, his deployment has been super interesting. I remember Dallas Eakins was the Oilers coach. I'm not sure, I think 2012, 2013. And, it was frustrating because we had a lot of young talent on that team that we were excited to, see take that big next step. And, they just really weren't able to under Dallas Eakins. So perhaps he's, a coach that's prone to slow development. He just has a little more trust in his veteran guys. But I think with a guy like Zegras, if you're playing him in the top 6, he's talented enough that he's going to be able to find his game within a couple of weeks in the NHL. I think you should just be giving him all the opportunity to succeed.
On Tuesday, we had big news coming from the golf world of things. Tiger Woods was hospitalized in a rollover accident, and he needed surgery on both legs. I read from the report there, and he was already going for his 5th back surgery. So, I think the Masters is really in doubt for Tiger Woods.
Yeah, absolutely. He was involved in it was a single car accident. So it's interesting. I think, over the next couple of weeks, we might see more come out. I'm hoping that it wasn't, a drunken accident, a little bit of a DUI, because that could get Tiger in a lot more trouble. But yeah, just, he's such an interesting player because, one of the greats of all time, if you're, up to date with golf. And he has the potential now to make not only one incredible comeback, but 2 throughout his career. He kind of took a step back, throughout the 2010s. He had some injuries and, some off the, golf course, shenanigans, but he was able to, come back and win a Masters. And it'd be incredible to see him win another one before his career ends, especially after this incident.
Once again, the NHL rulebook came into effect on Tuesday night for the Montreal Canadiens against the Ottawa Senators. There was a controversial call late in the game with about 4 seconds left as Brendan Gallagher interfered with goaltender Matt Murray. And personally, from me and reading from all the Twitter, everyone said it was a goal. Let's throw it to you, Nolan, because I'll share my opinions afterwards.
Yeah, I think absolutely it was a goal. I think Gallagher, he had a quote that said, I had enough time to get up and reset. The goalie should have enough time to get up and reset. And I think Matt Murray did, if it was maybe a goal that went straight in, it absolutely could be pointed towards goalie interference. However, it was a tip goal. So, there's going to be struggle saving it anyways for a goalie. And I think it was just a frustrating one to call. But I think that, that goal should have been, counted, and they should have won the game late in regulation.
From my perspective, I believe that Matt Murray had enough time. Because if Gallagher does get knocked down, he does get knocked down, and he gets back up ready for the tip. Like, how much time are you going to give Murray to reset? The thing is, and I'm understanding this from both sides here. The reason Matt Murray, I guess got the call his way was because if you watch the replay, he was, he lost the puck. He lost sight of the puck, and you could tell by his body language that he wasn't set. So that's what, really gave the refs or the situation room in Toronto the key to say no goal, because by Matt Murray's body language, he was not set for the shot, simply because he didn't know where the puck was, because he spun around. Well, first of all, he was interfered with. Second of all, he spun around on his own. So that, in my opinion, is why Matt Murray lost sight of the puck, or, why the goal was disallowed, is because Matt Murray lost sight of the puck. And, it was a real tough loss for Montreal, since they did lose it in the shootout that game. So just another one bites the dust, essentially.
Yeah, and also it's an interesting case because Brendan Gallagher, he's a player that's probably going to get up from a situation like that quicker than anyone else in the league, just kind of his style of play. And, goalies, they're kind of taught to be a little bit theatrical in terms of, when they get knocked down, kind of flail themselves around, just to be able to get that call. You see it, just a goalie will get a tap sometimes and they'll, go back on one skate, flailing back. So it might be an instance of that, but definitely unfortunate for the Canadiens.
There are going to be tickets sold for Vegas Golden Knight fans. 7 Golden Knights home games during the month of March will go on sale for the public 10 a.m. on Thursday, and apparently it's going to be 2,600 seats at capacity. I think at least we're returning. At least there's hope on the horizon, I should say. Normalcy, we aren't returning that. We aren't going to return to that for a while now, but at least there's hope that at least, over 50, maybe over 70% of arenas in the NHL will be able to host fans in some capacity.
Yeah, just, kind of sprinkled throughout the NHL map. Teams are slowly just able to, bring fans back. I remember last week, I think it was either Boston or New York. They were able to, bring fans back. And it's just nice to see. I was watching the Arizona game the other night against Anaheim. I guess it would have been last week. And, it wasn't until like the second period I noticed there's fans in the crowd, just because, there's not too many. However, I do think, it does make a little bit of a difference. Arizona was able to, have 2-3-0 comebacks, I think. And, having fans there could be a part of that, just being able to kind of spark the team. But, just being there, from firsthand, shout out to the Hayden hockey team a year ago, winning the championship and having the fans there. It just wouldn't be the same kind of memory for you and for the whole team if the fans weren't there. So I think, just for sports fans and everyone involved in sports, I think fans coming back is just a positive thing, regardless of how many it is.
Another heartwarming story on Tuesday was actually news from Henrik Lundqvist. 47 days after undergoing open heart surgery, Lundqvist made his return back onto the ice. Hopefully, we can see him play again. His retirement is still up in the air, but this is definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, he had an unfortunate offseason getting bought out by the New York Rangers, the team where he played his whole life. Then going to Washington, and then all of a sudden open heart surgery. I really thought that, retirement was what's going to happen for Henrik Lundqvist. But, within 47 days, like you said, of open heart surgery, being able to be on the ice, probably not moving at his tip-top shape, but slowly getting back to that point. It'd be amazing if we could one day see Henrik Lundqvist playing in the NHL again.
You mentioned the Arizona Coyotes coming back from, a couple 3-0 games. Well, actually, the Oilers came back down 3-0 against the Vancouver Canucks that Tuesday night. This team, I thought the Oilers showed a lot of battle, and actually that power play came in clutch for the Oilers. And personally, I think that Tyson Barrie is playing like his Colorado days again.
Yeah, we brought in Tyson Barrie 1 year, $4 million. He struggled last year in Toronto, and we were just kind of, we knew Clefbaum wasn't going to be able to play in this season, so we kind of gave Barrie the keys to be that defenseman on the power play. And he's been phenomenal. And I think the chances of him coming back for another around $4 million deal are very unlikely. I think he's going to be able to hit the market like he expected to last season and get this big offer. As for the Oilers team as a whole, I've been an Oilers fan for the majority of my life. And this type of game, especially, this Oilers team, if we were to go down 3-0 2 years ago, there's no way I could see us coming back and winning the game. Just the way things went in that first period, I would have thought the game would have ended maybe, 5-2. We could have gotten 2 on the board, but, they would have as well. But just, it shows the growth in this Oilers team and, under Dave Tippett, the confidence to be able to come back from a 3-0 deficit and, the power play coming in handy as well.
On Wednesday morning, the Habs fired their head coach, Claude Julien, and assistant coach, Kirk Muller, after 5 seasons after their loss Tuesday night against the Sens. We will never know if Julien survives another night, if the Habs win a Tuesday night. But alas, Dominic Ducharme is named an interim head coach to basically go through a quick summary of his coaching resume. He coached at the World Juniors both in 2017-18, capturing silver and gold medals. And he actually coached the Halifax Mooseheads with Joe Drouin and Nate McKinnon when they were a part of that star-studded lineup. I think that Bergevin is definitely on the hot seat here. He's in year 8 of his tenure with the Montreal Canadiens. He's already burned through one core featuring Max Pacioretty, Andrei Markov in those early, kind of 2010s in a way. If Dom Ducharme doesn't work out, Bergevin could certainly be let go at the end of the season. Another reason why I think Julien was fired is because special teams is such a big part of the game. If you go into the rankings, Montreal never had a top 10 power play or a top 10 penalty kill. So, it was never that's never a good sign when you're a head coach for 5 seasons. And not only that, but he was never in the running for coach of the year, which I think kind of plays a significant part. He was never even top 5. Or, if you can at least get top 5, then yeah, sure, you should be able to, that's a reason why you should be able to keep your job. But, nonetheless, he never won coach of the year. And even as we saw on Saturday night, Julien, and it seems to have run in the family there, the coaches for Montreal, they don't use good players during 3-on-3 situations. And, points are getting away from the Montreal Canadiens, and they're going to slip out of this playoff picture sooner rather than later if they can't figure out this 3-on-3 play. And the record goes to show, Montreal has never won a 3-on-3 game yet this season. And personally, for me, if Dom Ducharme doesn't work out, I would like to see Benoit Gould take over as head coach. And this is actually a rule set in by the owner, by Jeff Molson. The head coach and GM both have to be French because he realizes that half of the population of Montreal Canadiens fans are from Quebec or, do live in the Montreal area. So he wants to make sure that the coach and general manager can answer questions from the media in French and English.
Yeah, it's an important thing to be bilingual when you're working within the Canadiens organization, just because, there's such a demographic of Canadiens fans that, it's convenient for them to be able to see a, coach that can speak French. I think it was the right move. There was a press conference with Bergevin, and he brought up last year how, they lost 8 games in a row on 2 separate occasions. And he just kind of felt that the direction that this team was going in, in the last couple of weeks was kind of trending towards, maybe one of those, slumps where they did lose 8 games last year. And, in a tight North Division, you can't really afford that. I do think it was the right move, though, ultimately to fire Claude Julien, just because, the indicators you said, special teams is a big part of, of hockey. I remember, the Oilers under Todd McClellan and Ken Hitchcock, we couldn't get anything going on the power play, and our penalty kill was horrendous. But, we've been top 10 in the league under Dave Tippett, and it's just, been so huge, being able to, compete and being able to get the most out of those situations. Bergevin, in terms of him on the hot seat, I could definitely see that. But I do think he's built the best Canadiens roster that we've seen in the wild, just top to bottom, lots of depth. But they do need the right coach to, lead them at the helm. And it's going to be interesting to see what Ducharme can do in his tenure.
2 teams that are allowing fans into their arena, getting back onto this topic, are the New York Islanders, which are supposed to be allowing fans on March 18th, and actually the Carolina Hurricanes. The North Carolina governor actually came out and said, we're going to allow up to 15% capacity, 15% capacity is the max that we're going to allow for fans to be inside indoor arenas. So, again, we love to see fans in the stands. They add an extra element to the game that is definitely missing. We saw that last year in the bubble. I felt that, fans are, we're definitely missing them this season.
Yeah, for the Islanders, I'm not sure. I've kind of known, but kind of don't know for sure if they're back in, on the island. They played in Brooklyn for a couple of years, and I know that a lot of, ticket sales and fans just in New York kind of went down. But now that I think they're back in the island, they've built a new arena. It's going to be nice for the fans to, kind of break in and, kind of start to rebuild that Long Island culture that they had before they made the move to Brooklyn. As for the Carolina Hurricanes, I'd be interested to see if we get a little bit of it was the storm surge. Is that what it was called? The storm?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if the fans come back. That'll spark some of that. And I think, that was a big part of Carolina in the last 2 years. A big part of their culture is that, they were able to have fun with their fans and, be a bunch of jerks and, make light of being a professional hockey team. So it'll be interesting to see when those two teams get fans back in the building.
The Flames offered up stingy defense against the top team in the North Division, the Toronto Maple Leafs, allowing only 2 goals in 2 games, which, doesn't seem much. But when you consider that Austin Matthews was on, like 11, 12 game point streak, along with how many goals he scored during that game or during that point streak, it's crazy to think that David Riddick was as well in net and taking over Jacob Markstrom. It's crazy to think that that Flames defense really did stymie the Leafs offense.
Yeah, I think they had no other option. They lost 7-1 to the Oilers last Saturday. Their defense and goaltending alike just, was a real low spot on that team. And I think, the Flames have had such an interesting season. They've at the start of the season, when they had a winning record, they had a little, meeting within their players and, things have seemed to gone down from there. The Flames, they believe that they should be a competitive team. And I think, the mindset after losing 7-1, they had the right mindset going into play Toronto in that series and being able to have some more stability on the back end. It's a positive thing for Flames fans for sure.
Well, I know for me, I'm missing OHL hockey, and Owen Sound Attack defenseman Andrew Parrott, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name, but he posted a 3-page paragraph to Twitter describing how important it is to the players to have an OHL season. Currently, they are the only team left in the CHL that is on standby. The WHL opened up their season this past weekend, and the QMJHL has been, resumed playing. And, just to summarize the article here, he cited having an OHL season would be good for mental health for the players. And, seniors have really missed out on furthering their academics. They're only used to taking 1 to 2 courses to balance out their life at the rink. But, had they known this would go on for so long, I'm sure the seniors would have furthered their academics, taking more courses to kind of, do more with their time since they have so much time off. There's going to be a petition I'm going to link in the bio of the video. So if you can, please go sign this petition. We're just trying to raise awareness to get an OHL season underway. I miss it a lot. Nolan, I know you miss it. We usually go to a lot of Hamilton Bulldogs games together. That's always a blast. And, for the players, this goes a long way for them because this was going to be their draft year. A lot of them play in the OHL. And I just hope that Lisa McLeod, who's the Minister of Sport, gets something done in order for these players to play.
Yeah, it's just been frustrating for, both fans and players of the OHL. This season, whether it's, only 20 something games, I think, anything would be better than nothing just to be able to see them get back on the ice.
On Thursday, Bruce Boudreau actually, there was a report on NHL.com that said Bruce Boudreau's interested in the Seattle Kraken head coaching job. And that vacancy is still open. We haven't learned yet who the next head coach would be. I think it's going to be Gerard Gallant. Maybe that's because he did so well with Vegas. But I think that Gallant would be a perfect fit simply because of the expansion team.
Yeah, this isn't the NHL, but with the NFL, I feel like, something that's been happening in recent years is, these kind of under the radar sort of coaches kind of step onto the scene, Sean McVay working his way up, Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona. I think, the NHL should maybe take note and start to, transition to more of a new age style of, coaching in the league. And with Bruce Boudreau, yes, he can come in and maybe build a solid system, but for an expansion team, maybe Bruce Boudreau wouldn't be the best coach, and they should have someone that can, kind of, come onto the scene. Gerard Gallant, a good option as well. He did it with Vegas, but someone to just sort of like build a new culture in Seattle and, grow with their team rather than, a coach maybe stuck in 2005 in terms of, his style.
The Flyers are getting fans back in the stands, but I don't think the limit is known quite yet, although it could be. Anyway, again, the players are even speaking out about it. A lot of Flyer fans are saying, or a lot of Flyer players are saying that they're definitely excited to see their fans back in the stands. I'm sure Gritty's going to be, excited as well because he loves playing pranks on the fans. So not only are the players going to enjoy it, but even the mascot as well.
Yeah, I've watched a couple Flyers games this year, and they just have Gritty on this big platform up in the stands. So it'll be nice to see some more orange in the crowd. Philadelphia, one of those teams I feel like their energy radiates off of their fans. Boston, Washington, these sort of teams that, they have hardworking fans. They come to the rink to watch their team play, and the team kind of puts on a hardworking, show as well. So it'll be nice to see Philadelphia getting their fans back.
The Senators are getting a lot of confidence from their series against the Leafs and Habs, in my opinion. They are one of the more bottom teams in the NHL, so that could be a reason why they're playing so loose. They have really nothing to lose, and they could really sneak up on some teams.
Yeah, I think, with the Senators, I think they get a little bit underestimated. They still are an NHL team, and some people kind of, refuse to think that they are, and like you said, sneak up on them. They can compete with the best of them. They've beat the Leafs, they beat the Habs, the Winnipeg Jets they've beaten. They beat the Flames this week. So, pretty much almost every team in the North Division. I think, this style of play that they're doing is perfect in terms of their development. They're kind of just letting their young guys go out there and play. Batherson's been solid this season. Brady Kichuk, as always. Tim Stützle has been exciting. And I think, just getting these guys all the time in the world, all the opportunities will be good for their development. And when their team is ready to, actually compete for, the playoffs, not so much a couple wins in a season, I think, it'll show from these years that these players have come a long way.
Demko, like I mentioned, he had to really step up his game, and he did. He did Thursday night against Edmonton. He played phenomenal. But despite that play of Demko, I still believe that Jim Benning is on the hot seat as well. Just because losing to Foley and losing Tanev, these losses on their decor, they haven't really fully recovered from it.
Yeah, their owner came out and said that Jim Benning and Green weren't on the hot seat. That's what he has to say. I think Jim Benning, even 2 or 3 years ago, people were calling for their head. And, with the success of, Pettersson, I think it's given him a little bit of, more slack, just because, people, every time they want to fire him, they can look to, he drafted Pettersson, he made such a great move. But I do think, as a whole, you need to be looking at everything that he's done. And like you mentioned earlier in the episode, the Canucks fourth line, guys like Beagle, Antoine Roussel, Brandon Sutter, Louis Eriksson, just making a ton of money. I think, they're in a sticky situation, and, Benning definitely should be looked at in terms of getting fired.
I think Florida is legit. I think they're definitely going to be a tough team, a tough out. They're currently actually third in the league if you go points percentage wise, which might be a smart idea given all the postponements that we've had. Anyway, but I think if it's all because of Chris Driedger. I think, his play has been phenomenal this season. I think that he could be in the Vezina Trophy winning race. If he keeps up the way he's been playing.
Yeah, one of those dark horse candidates. When you think of Florida and goaltending, you think of Bobrovsky and his $10 million contract. Unfortunately, they have their hands tied with that. Potential buyout coming in the next few seasons definitely could happen. But, Driedger, people don't really know about him just because he was the backup last year. But this season, he's been lights out. I think he's only lost 1 or 2 games when he's been in. And, 920 something, 930 something, just to do that over a decent amount of games is phenomenal. And his play has been helping them, be, like you said, second in the league.
7-2-1 with a 2.18 goals against average and a 928 save percentage. That's good for me to definitely be in the Vezina trophy race.
Yeah, I think, the difficulty just might be in terms of, the amount of starts to win the Vezina, just because, when you're paying someone $10 million like Sergei Bobrovsky, it's hard to put them in that, sort of backup role. And, he had a good game the other night, but I think a split start at least should be what they're doing in terms of, how well Jigger's been playing.
Speaking of goaltenders, we should probably talk about Carrie Price. He is, definitely struggling. There's no way to sugarcoat the information, but we aren't too far removed from that bubble play where he posted, consistently like 910s and 912s and 900 save percentage, much better than what he's posting right now. And I really think that play is because of the color of his pads. I'm very convinced that, sorry, I don't like the red pads. I hate them because I think, the shooters can see a lot of the net. Look at Nate Thompson, right? If you're looking 5-hole, he scored one of the goals on Thursday night, I think, against, when Montreal played Winnipeg anyway. But, when you have red pads, that's so glaring, but you see the net underneath. And I think that with white pads, he did much better with white pads in the bubble, might I add. It kind of camouflages within the net. You don't see the net as clearly as you do with red goalie pads. And, Jake Allen, he's playing with white pads. Look how well he's doing. But that could also, you could also make the argument that Allen is better with rest. And he's getting a lot of that rest this season since, you kind of mentioned it with how, Bobrovsky and Carrie Price are both getting paid $10 million plus, and you should give the boatload of the starts to them.
Yeah, I saw a tweet, and it was just saying how interesting goalies were. Carrie Price, he's a goalie. He's won the heart. He's been known as, one of these greatest goalies in the league, maybe even one of the best of all time. But he was just saying how interesting goalies were. Like, imagine if Connor McDavid all of a sudden had 4 points in 10 games sort of thing. That's kind of what we're seeing from Carrie Price, just taking a huge step back. I still do believe he is one of the top goalies in the league. Just, every goalie does go on, a little stretch where they're not playing up to their, full potential. And, whether it be the red pads or that, he's got a young kid at home keeping him busy. I just think there's a lot of factors, and we're not really used to seeing Carrie Price play this bad because he's been so amazing throughout his whole career.
And, the players get pulled every year on interesting questions. And, the question that, comes up is, who's the best goalie in the league? Well, Carrie Price is, still top two. Like, players still think, Carrie Price is one of the best goalies in the league. Because and to mention, before you jump in here, to mention the NHLPA, right? They were going to go a best of 3 series in the first round, in the playing round for the playoffs there in the bubble. But you know what stopped them? Carrie Price made them change it to a best of 5 because the players are like, oh no, Carrie Price can steal 2 of those 3 games and the series is quickly over. So, if you want to fight me on that, fight me. But the facts are facts. And, he is struggling, but there's reasons why I believe that Carrie Price should be the starter going forward.
No, I absolutely think he should be the starting going forward. And all I'll say on the bubble situation is it didn't matter because they still won in 5 games. So, Carrie Price, any given night, I'm still confident if he's in my net.
Ken Holland was actually giving praise to Jesse Puljujarvi on Overdrive TSN 1050 radio and TV show there. A couple of the quotes that I quickly jotted down during the interview was, he's giving the puck to Connor and Nuge. He's a net front presence. And, admittedly, Ken Holland said that, Jesse Puljujarvi did lose his swagger after getting drafted really high, but he went to Finland to regain that confidence. And so far it's paying off for him this season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, a big credit to, the way that Dave Tippett kind of transitioned him into the lineup. People expected when he came straight from Finland to be on, McDavid's wing perhaps. But at the start of the season, he was playing third line minutes with, Kyle Turris, James Neal, guys like that. and sort of just, gaining that confidence depth wise. And, once he showed enough flashes of his skill and of his impact on the ice, that's when, he made the transition to the first line. And it seems to have been, pretty seamless. And, he's fitting in really well within that group.
We got another brutal news coming from Canadian media once again. Sportsnet is cutting radio for Blue Jays broadcasts. The TV crew will, or, they're going to simulcast it, which means that the TV crew will do play-by-play for both TV viewers and radio viewers. This is just, and they're blaming the pandemic, but, last season, the Jays and Rogers Sportsnet did a radio broadcast for all 60 games or however many were in the season last year for the Blue Jays. So who's to say that you can't do it again this season? And, I find it crazy that Canadian media is taking a turn for the worst, in my opinion, by this. And baseball, in my opinion, is a perfect game on the radio. You're driving home, you got a 30-minute drive or whatever, flip on the game, and, it's perfect because of the pace of play, because of how slow it is. It's a perfect game. It's basically made for radio, and then you're just taking that medium out of it. And also the Jays are the only MLB team to do that this season. So, a lot of eyes are on Sportsnet for cutting radio.
Yeah, no, I think you said exactly what I was going to say, in that baseball, for me at least, I think of baseball as, a great game to have on the radio, just in terms of, just how the game is played. It's not something where there's too much complication where you can't really describe what's going on. It's kind of, there's simple ways to describe what happens, pop out, fly out, ground out, etc. And it's just, it is a game that's really nice on the radio. So it is unfortunate. And it also affects, the TV broadcast. Now that they're kind of, playing for both TV and radio, we might see a little bit of a shift in terms of how the games are being presented, and, overall just a negative thing. And like we mentioned the other week with a couple of stations being cut, it's just unfortunate because, sports radio, it's kind of a lost art, and hopefully we don't see, it kind of be eradicated in the next few years. Hopefully not.
I think this kind of disrespects the people who, did work for the Jays in the radio business. You think of, Jerry Howarth, who, we kind of grew up with. You may not be the biggest baseball fan, but he was the main play-by-play for
you recognize the voice 100%.
Yeah, exactly. And these guys, you recognize the voice, and there's not going to be a different broadcast, which is kind of weird, because now I feel like the commentary is going to lack a little flow from, since you're advocate, or you're creating an audience for both TV and radio. It's going to be a little choppy, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, 100%, and I think you're right on that.
Hunter Miska started he started before. I don't think this was his first NHL game, but the goalie for the Colorado Avalanche actually got credited with his first NHL win Friday night over the Arizona Coyotes, 3-2. The Coyotes have now gone 3 straight games with giving up a 3-goal lead before actually starting to play. So that is a trend that, the Coyotes should definitely look out for.
Yeah, no, I was watching this game actually, and Miska was playing well to this point, but he hadn't been tested so much, and late in the game, all of a sudden Arizona scored 2 goals, and I was hoping that he could shut the door, because being up 3-0 late in the game and then blowing it and not being able to get your first win would have sucked. But it's nice that he was able to hold on, and not a good thing for the Coyotes. Being down 3-0 is not a good thing in 3 straight games. They've been able to somehow pick up four total points out of 6, but it's not the way you want to start a game. It's like the Nuggets in the NBA playoffs last year, how they said going into the conference finals, how they asked the coach jokingly said to start the series down 3-1 to the Lakers, but it's just like, even if you're tested and able to come back from it, it's just not a situation you want to put yourself in.
The potential rookie of the year is certainly not in my books. I think Kevin Lankinen's going to win rookie of the year. Kirill Kaprizov for the Minnesota Wild was all over the ice against the LA Kings Friday night. He out-hustled Drew Doughty for a wraparound goal. We mentioned that Drew is having definitely one of his better seasons in recent years. And Wild fans are getting a nice glimpse at the future of their team.
Yeah, the Minnesota Wild offense, it's never been something they're known for, but they've been super solid over the last couple of games. Obviously Kaprizov being this young talent, exciting, but guys like Zuccarello, Jordan Greenway, these guys, Ryan Hartman as well, these guys that you're maybe not used to being these elite point scorers have somehow been this. And I don't think it'll stay for the whole season, although I do think Kaprizov is going to be a solid piece and just something to look forward to 100%.
On Saturday, Joey Daccord, Pagcast guest, made his first NHL appearance in relief of Matt Murray. He was solid. I was watching that game, and Joey Daccord, it was actually reported, I think, on the weekend that DJ Smith will start Joey Daccord in either tonight's game against the Flames or tomorrow's game against the Montreal Canadiens. So it's going to be interesting. I'm certainly happy for the kid. I can't wait to watch him, whether it's tonight or tomorrow night. I'm just super excited for him.
Yeah, you love to see it. I think he went 5 for 5, wasn't tested too much, but, made all the saves that he needed to do. Unfortunately, they were sort of out of the game at that point. But, hopefully, that he gets the full game, like you said, either tonight or tomorrow night. He can, show that he's a solid goaltender and transition into being the backup for this team.
Another milestone that we witnessed is Thomas Shabbat has 100 career assists. It's not much, but, you got to feel good for the guy because he's playing on such a crappy team. He's able to accomplish that. And hopefully, he's going to be the stud of that team. He's such a stud. And hopefully Ottawa can build a competent defensive core around him.
Yeah, no, I think Shabbat, he's, even though he's been on a bad team, he's been able to show that he's going to be a solid NHL player with, a good career. And I hope that, he's able to do it. I was listening to another hockey podcast, and they were saying how the Senators are building around Brady Kichuk. But I'd actually make the argument that the piece that they should be building around is Thomas Shabbat. It's not often when you have that, workhorse sort of 24, 25 minute a night, top power play. He just does everything super well. And I think, maybe 5 years down the road, we could be making the argument that he's one of the best in the whole league.
Linus Ullmark is out at least a month, and that basically does it for the Buffalo Sabres season. 11 seasons and counting for the Sabres playoff drought. So on to next season, the Sabre fans go. And again, they'll be drafting hopefully in the top 5.
Yeah, at least Buffalo has the Bills, and they're not on their, treacherous drought that they had throughout the 2000s. Now they're starting to get into the playoffs. But like I said earlier, the start of the season wasn't too bad for the Sabres. People, they were actually doing fairly well, within that East Division, only a couple points back. But as soon as the COVID bug hit them and they were out for 2 weeks, it really just kind of, really put their season, took it all the way back, and now they're struggling a lot.
On Sunday, Alain Vigneault won his 700th career game as the Flyers pulled off back-to-back shutouts against the Sabres. And that was actually Carter Hart's second career shutout, which actually kind of amazed me in his young career. So, you obviously love shutting out your opponent 2 times in a row. Congrats to Vigneault on his 700th career game, or 700th career win, I should say. I just got to love how the Flyers are playing right now.
Yeah, Vigneault, I was used to seeing him, he made the run in 2011 with Vancouver, and then in 2014 with the Rangers. He kind of went out for a little bit, wasn't coaching. And when he got hired by the Flyers, I absolutely love the move, just in terms of the team roster. They have a good mix of veteran and young players, guys like Konechny, Farabee. But then, you also have, the Giroux and Couturiers. So I think, Vigneault is just the right coach for this Flyers team. And, 2 straight shutouts, even if it is against the Sabres, they're proving that they're one of the top teams in the league.
Nashville beat Columbus 3-1, and now Columbus is on a 5-game losing streak. And actually, there's a rumor saying that Tortorella could be on his way out the door because of this losing streak. He has 1 year left on his deal. And, I think that Tortorella, if you were to leave, I don't know if that's such a good mentality for the Blue Jackets. I kind of like Tortorella because he's hard on the players, yet they kind of find their mojo when Tortorella does get hard on him. I think, it's one of those situations, in my opinion.
Yeah, he was questioned about it after the game. They asked him, if he was worried about that, and he said that he's that's never something that he worries about, getting fired. He's been fired in the past though, so it's interesting. I think Torts is just the perfect coach for Columbus, and I couldn't imagine anyone else being behind the bench. Just based off of the sort of culture that he's come in and built, in his tenure here so far.
Patrick Kane scored his 400th career goal. Another player that we've been growing up. Showtime. He is one of the best. Definitely in the top 3 conversation for best American hockey player ever. And he's one of the best Blackhawks ever. Actually, he's top 5 in goals with that 400th career goal. I can't wait to watch him score more. He's definitely my favorite Blackhawk for sure.
Yeah, throughout his whole career, it's been the Kane and Taves show, just in terms of, the two of them, two sort of, quote unquote superstars being on the ice. And this season, there's been no Taves, and, Patrick Kane's been able to step up and kind of be somewhat of a leader because they have so much youth on that team. And it's nice to see him reach 400 career goals. And I agree with you in everything that you said in terms of being one of the best American players of all time. He's just an incredibly talented player. And, even in these years of his career where he starts to, probably decline, and eventually retire, I think, he's still a phenomenal player and has such an impact on the game.
Time for Pegs' predictions. I went 3-2 last week. I'm not sure about your record, but hopefully all games get played. A few times when we've done this, games have gone postponed. So here's to hoping they all get played. I have the Islanders over the Devils, Rangers over the lowly Sabres, Flyers over the Penguins, the Red Wings over the Blue Jackets, Canadiens over the Senators, Predators over Hurricanes, Jets over Canucks, and finally Lightning over Stars.
I think I went 3-2 as well. I'm not too sure. A couple of OTs screwed me. I was close to being 5-0, but all of a sudden it was 3-2. I had some games. You ended up being right about the Senators over the Habs. Your kind of wild card prediction. This week, I'll go with the Islanders over the Devils. I'll go with the Sabres over the Rangers. I'm always going to be a little biased picking the Sabres. The Rangers, they're missing a lot as well, and hopefully it's an opportunity for the Sabres to, win that game. I'll go with the Canadiens 2 weeks in a row over the Senators. I think they're a different team. I'll go with the Blue Jackets over the Red Wings. It's just been tough season for the Red Wings. They're missing some key pieces as well right now. I'll go with the Hurricanes over the Predators. I'll go with the Penguins over the Flyers, actually, and I'll go with the Lightning over the Stars. Last game, actually, I'll go with the Jets over the Canucks, hopefully, because I picked up Laurent Brossoit, hoping he plays the back-to-back game for my fantasy team. So hopefully he'll win tomorrow night.
Well, I'd like to thank again Nolan Thode for joining me on another episode of Down to the Wire. Thank you again, Nolan.
No worries. It's always a pleasure, Pags.